Warriors Into the Wild by Aaron Hunter, Chapter 4, Part 3. At least this time the choice is obvious, meowed Halftail. Firepaw raised his head and looked around the clearing. Who could Halftail mean? To Firepaw, all the warriors looked worthy of becoming deputy. Perhaps he meant Tigerclaw. After all, he had avenged Redtail's death. Tigerclaw was sitting not far off, his ears angled toward the elders' conversation. As Firepaw stretched with his tongue to lick the last traces of mess from his whiskers, Bluestar's voice called from the high rock. Redtail's body still lay in the clearing below, pale gray in the fading light. A new deputy must be appointed, she meowed, but first let us give thanks to StarClan for the life of Redtail. Tonight he sits with his fellow warriors among the stars. Silence fell as all the cats looked up into the sky, which was beginning to darken as evening crept over the forest. And now I shall name ThunderClan's new deputy, Bluestar continued. I say these words before the body of Redtail so that his spirit may hear and approve my choice. Firepaw looked at Tigerclaw. He couldn't help noticing the hunger in the big warrior's amber eyes as he stared up at the high rock. Lionheart, meowed Bluestar, will be the new deputy of ThunderClan. Firepaw was curious to see Tigerclaw's reaction, but the dark warrior's face revealed nothing as he moved to congratulate Lionheart with a nudge so hearty that it almost pushed the golden tabby off balance. Why didn't you make Tigerclaw deputy? Firepaw whispered to Greypaw. Probably because Lionheart has been a warrior longer, so he has a lot more experience, Greypaw murmured back, still looking up at Bluestar. Bluestar spoke again. Redtail was also mentor to young Dustpaw. Since there must be no delay in the training of our apprentices, I shall appoint Dustpaw's new mentor immediately. Darkstripe, you are ready for your first apprentice, so you will continue Dustpaw's training. You had a fine mentor in Tigerclaw, and I expect you to pass on some of the excellent skills you were taught. The tabby warrior swelled with pride as he showed his apprentice the acceptance with a solemn nod. He strode over to Dustpaw, bent his head, and rather awkwardly touched noses with his new apprentice. Dustpaw flicked his tail respectfully, but his eyes were still dull with grief for his lost mentor. The tabby warrior swelled with pride as he showed his acceptance with a solemn nod. He strode over to Dustpaw, bent his head, and rather awkwardly touched noses with his new apprentice. Dustpaw flicked his tail respectfully, but his eyes were still dull with grief for his lost mentor. Bluestar raised her voice. I shall keep vigil with Redtail's body tonight before we bury him at sunrise. She jumped down from the high rock and walked over to lie beside Redtail's body once more. Many of the other cats joined her, Dustpaw and Small Ear among them. Should we sit with them too? Firepaw suggested. He had to admit the idea didn't appeal to him much. It had been a busy day, and he was beginning to feel tired. All he wanted to do was find somewhere warm and dry to curl up and sleep. Greypaw shook his head. No, only those who were closest to Redtail will share his final night. I'll show you where we sleep. The apprentice's den is over here. Firepaw followed Greypaw to a thick bush of ferns that lay behind a mossy tree stump. All the apprentices share their fresh kill by this stump, Greypaw told him. How many apprentices are there? Firepaw asked. Not as many as usual. Just me, you, Ravenpaw, Dustpaw, and Sandpaw. As Greypaw and Firepaw settled themselves beside the tree stump, a young she-cat crawled out from beneath the ferns. Her coat was ginger, like Firepaw's, but much paler, with barely visible stripes of darker fur. So here comes new apprentice, she meowed, narrowing her eyes. Hello, Firepaw mewed. The young cat sniffed rudely. He smells like kitty pet. Don't tell me I'm going to have to share my nest with that revolting stench. Firepaw felt rather taken aback. Since his fight with Longtail, all the cats had been rather friendly. Maybe they had just been distracted by Ravenpaw's news, he thought. You'll have to excuse Sandpaw, apologized Greypaw. I think she must have a furball stuck somewhere. She's not usually this bad-tempered. Psst, spat Sandpaw crossly. Sandpaw spat crossly. Hold on, youngsters. The deep voice of Whitestorm sounded behind the apprentices. Sandpaw, as my apprentice, I expected you to be a little more welcoming to this newcomer. Sandpaw held up her head and looked defiant. I'm sorry, Whitestorm, she purred, not sounding sorry at all. I just didn't expect to be training with a kitty pet, that's all. Well, I'm sure you get used to it, Sandpaw, meowed Whitestorm calmly. Now it's getting late. Training starts early tomorrow. You three should get some sleep. He gave Sandpaw a stern look, and she nodded obediently. As he walked off, she spun around and vanished into the clump of ferns, sniffing once more as she rushed past Firepaw. With a flick of his tail, Greypaw invited Firepaw to follow him and led the way after Sandpaw inside the sleeping area. The ground was lined with soft moss, and the pale moonlight turned everything a delicate shade of green. The air was fragrant with fern scent and warmer than outside. "Where do I sleep?" Firepaw asked. "Anywhere, just so long as it's not near me," snarled Sandpaw, who was prodding some moss with her paw. Graypaw and Firepaw exchanged glances but said nothing. Firepaw raked together a pile of moss with his claws. When he had gathered his bed into a cozy nest, he circled until it was comfortable and settled down. His whole body felt drowsy with contentment. This was his home now. He was a member of ThunderClan.